Ever wondered what could be the shortest war in history? Here's a hint. It's not one of those massive, drawn-out conflicts you might be picturing. In fact, it's a little-known event tucked away in the annals of history that lasted less than an hour, a blink and you'd miss it kind of war that nevertheless had far-reaching implications. Yes, we're talking about an event that's as fascinating as it is brief, the Anglo-Zanzibar War. Intrigued? Let's delve into it. To understand the cause of this war, we need to travel back to the late 19th century. Zanzibar, an archipelago off the east coast of Africa, was under the rule of Sultan Hamad bin Thuwaini, a man known for his amicable relations with the British. Britain, in its colonial pursuits, had established a strong foothold in Zanzibar, and the Sultan was more than willing to keep the British at his side. Now, this is where things get intriguing. A treaty had been signed between Britain and Sultan Hamad, known as the Heligoland-Zanzibar Treaty. This treaty, among other things, gave Britain control over Zanzibar, and in return, the Sultan was allowed to rule his subjects without interference. However, there was one clause that would later ignite the spark of conflict. The treaty stated that the Sultan could not name his successor without the consent of the British consul. In August 1896, Sultan Hamad passed away suddenly. His cousin, Khalid bin Bargash, saw this as an opportunity to seize power, and he did just that. He proclaimed himself the new sultan without consulting the British consul, a direct violation of the treaty. The British, unsurprisingly, were less than thrilled about this. They had another candidate in mind, Hamoud bin Mohammed, who they believed would be more favourable to British interests. The British consul, Basil Cave, demanded that Khalid step down, but Khalid, with his newfound power, refused. He began to gather his forces, preparing for a confrontation with the British. Unbeknownst to him, the British were doing the same, calling in warships and troops from nearby British colonies. The political climate was tense, and the air was thick with anticipation. On one side, we had Khalid, a man who believed he was the rightful ruler of Zanzibar, and on the other, we had the British, who were determined to enforce the treaty and install their preferred candidate. And so, the stage was set for a conflict that would go down in history. On the 27th of August 1896, the conflict reached its boiling point. The British, having grown increasingly frustrated with Khalid's defiance, issued an ultimatum. They demanded that Khalid step down from his self-proclaimed position as Sultan by 9 o'clock in the morning, or face the consequences. As the clock ticked closer to the deadline, the air was thick with tension. The British were prepared for Khalid's refusal. They had brought in 5 warships, including the formidable HMS Philomel and HMS Thrush, and had a contingent of Marines at the ready. Khalid, on the other hand, was not to be easily swayed. He had gathered his own force, comprised of around 3,000 men, including his personal guard, civilians, and even some of his servants. He had fortified his palace, the Beit al-Hukum, with a perimeter of barricades and was ready to fight. 9 o'clock came and went, with no word from Khalid. The British took this as a sign of defiance, and at 9:02 a.m. they let loose the first shots, targeting the palace. The bombardment was relentless and fierce. The Beit al-Hukum was rapidly reduced to rubble, its once grand structure now just a smoky, burning ruin. Despite the overwhelming show of force, Khalid's men stood their ground. They returned fire, albeit with much less effective weaponry, but their courage was no match for the British firepower. One by one, they fell, some to the direct hits from the naval guns, others crushed under the falling debris of the palace. In the midst of the chaos, Khalid managed to escape, slipping through the British lines and disappearing into the city. But for his palace and the majority of his forces, it was the end of the line. The world's shortest war had been fought and won. The British had made their point and re-established their authority. In less than an hour, the war was over. But what were its implications? The Anglo-Zanzibar War, despite its brief duration, had far-reaching consequences. As the dust settled on the briefest war in history, the aftermath was decisive. The British, having demonstrated their military might, wasted no time in consolidating their control over Zanzibar. They installed Hamoud bin Mohammed, a British puppet sultan who was more amenable to their interests. This change in leadership was a clear demonstration of the British colonial policy of the time, indirect rule. Instead of governing the colonies directly, they preferred to control through local leaders who were loyal to them. This strategy, while seemingly less intrusive, was a method of ensuring the smooth extraction of resources and the easy implementation of British policies. Meanwhile, the defeated Sultan Khalid was captured and exiled to Seychelles and later to St. Helena. His fall from power marked the end of any serious local opposition to British rule in Zanzibar. Khalid's failed resistance to British influence became a cautionary tale for other rulers in East Africa, making them think twice before challenging the British Empire. The Anglo-Zanzibar War also had a profound impact on British colonial policy in East Africa. It marked a shift from a policy of minimal interference to a more hands-on approach, as Britain sought to safeguard its interests in the region. This was a pivotal moment, a turning point that would shape the future of East Africa. Moreover, the war served as a stark reminder of the power disparities between European colonial powers and the territories they sought to control. It illustrated the lengths to which the British were willing to go to protect their interests, and the ease with which they could topple local rulers who opposed them. In the grand scheme of things, the Anglo-Zanzibar War may have been brief, but its impact was far-reaching. It was a potent symbol of the era of colonialism, a time when empires reshaped the world in their image. The ripples of this short but significant war were felt far beyond the shores of Zanzibar. Now that we've explored the history of the Anglo-Zanzibar War, let's look at some fascinating facts about this unique conflict. You might be surprised to learn that this war holds the Guinness World Record for being the shortest recorded war in history. Yes, you heard it right. This war, fought between the British Empire and the Sultanate of Zanzibar on August 27, 1896, lasted for a mere 38 to 45 minutes. Now here's another intriguing fact. The war was sparked by the death of Sultan Hamad bin Thuwaini, who was suspected to have been poisoned. However, it was never proven, and the mystery surrounding his demise remains unsolved to this day. Not many wars can claim a yacht as a significant player, but the Anglo-Zanzibar War can. The Sultan's luxurious royal yacht, the HHS Glasgow, was converted into a warship and played a pivotal role in the battle. Despite its opulence, the Glasgow was armed with a 7-pounder gun, and it was the first to open fire on the British. The casualty count of the war is another point of interest. While the British suffered only one casualty, the Sultanate of Zanzibar had over 500. It's astonishing to think of the scale of damage that occurred in such a short span of time. After the war, the British placed a new sultan on the throne, Hamad bin Mohammed. He was more cooperative with the British, which led to Zanzibar becoming a British protectorate until its independence in 1963. In the grand scheme of world history, the Anglo-Zanzibar War may seem like a blip. Yet it's a testament to how quickly events can unfold, and that every minute can carry the weight of history. So there you have it. The story of the shortest war in history, a conflict that lasted less than an hour but left a lasting legacy. In the grand scheme of history, the Anglo-Zanzibar War might seem like a small blip, but as we've seen, it's a fascinating tale of power, diplomacy, and the complexities of colonialism. This war, despite being the shortest recorded in history, had profound implications. It shapes our understanding that history isn't just about grand events or long-lasting conflicts. It's also about these seemingly minor incidents that ripple through time, influencing the course of nations and peoples. The Anglo-Zanzibar War, a conflict that lasted less than an hour, led to significant changes in Zanzibar's political landscape and its relationship with Britain. Moreover, it reminds us of the countless, often overlooked stories in history. Just as the sun never sets on the British Empire, so too does history's stage offer countless corners waiting to be explored. The story of the Anglo-Zanzibar War invites us to delve into these niches, to uncover the untold tales and hidden narratives that lie beneath the surface of our shared past. And let's not forget, history isn't just about dates and facts. It's also about the stories, the drama, the human experiences. The Anglo-Zanzibar War, with its swift resolution and far-reaching consequences, is a testament to that. Remember, even the shortest events can have the longest echoes. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious.